figured out what's gonna happen in Natlan's main story.
Why the fuck you lying?
Okay, I may not have figured out the entire thing with every single detail, but I have some hints on what might happen, and I have basically found out a formula Hoyo has been following. So even if I am wrong, you guys can still use the same formula to figure it out. Now before we start, corrections are going to be in the comments, and all credits and socials are going to be in the description down below. Now, let's begin. I have noticed recently that Genshin has been following a certain pattern with their Archon quests and their Archon stories. At first, if you randomly compare one Archon's quest to another, it is vastly different from one another. But that's the thing. If you just select randomly, then one Archon's fate does not match a particular pattern to the other. That is until you pull in this magical word called Syzygy. Now, Syzygy has been a big part of Genshin for a while now. Since the very beginning, fans have been creating theories using this concept, including the renowned theorist of the community, Island XD, and thus far the chess theory he made years ago, which used this same concept, is still promising to this day, among the many others he made as well. Genshin has gone so far as to even have Syzygy as a mechanic in the Spiral Abyss. And on top of that, Genshin takes lots of inspiration from mythology similar to this. So it is to no surprise for this concept to resurface in this humble theory of mine. Now, most Genshin veterans should already know what Syzygy means. I will still explain it in short. If you already know, then you can just skip this part. Timestamps should be there unless I forgot to put it in. If that happens, I do apologize. The word Syzygy appears in a lot of different topics in real life, but the one Syzygy we are talking about now is the mythology part of it. If you search it up, you're going to get a lot of complicated stuff. So instead of that, let me put it in simple words. Syzygy is basically pairing things with one another for a purpose or broader understanding of the concept. Basically pairing the sun with the moon, man with woman, cat with dog, things like that. You can also call it pairing opposites as well. I won't waste too much of your time going into super detail and mytho stories in this topic, because to understand this theory, that is practically all you need to know about Syzygy. But if you still want to learn more, I will put links in the description for you, or you can search it up on your own. So now that we know what Syzygy is, we got to put up some ground rules so that we can know who to pair with who. What we know is that they need to have similarities, but also have opposite properties to them as well. So let's pair the Archons up first. Venti with Zhongli and Ei with Nahida. So, why did we pair these characters like so? For that, let's see their opposites first, and we will tackle their similarities to predict the future later. For their opposites first, let's see their personality. Venti has an extremely outgoing, happy and fluffy personality. He is always carefree and chill, and thus pairing him with Zhongli makes the most sense, since Zhongli's personality, on the other hand, is extremely stoic and serious all the time, with the least bit of expression shown. You could ask why I didn't pair Venti with Ei then, since Ei also seems to be serious, but that's the Shogun, not I. When you talk to Ei, she actually expresses a lot of emotion, and she talks really cheerfully too every now and then. She even tries to prank you in the teapot when you talk to her pretending to be the Shogun.
あら、もう分かってしまいましたか? よく似ていると思ったんですが。
And speaking of Zhongli and Venti, even their elements are complete opposites. Anemo or wind, the definition of freedom, while Geo or Earth A, strong and strict restraining aura that protects but also cages itself. Even in filmmaking, wind is always used as a means of showing freedom and happiness, while rocks or stones are used as a notion of hardship, or being trapped in a cave of life. Pretty philosophical stuff, all this. Now let's tackle the opposites for Nahida and Ei before we move on to seeing the similarities of the pair to predict the future. Nahida, the Archon of Dendro, forcefully trapped by the sages in solitary confinement for 500 years, as the sages doubted her divinity and wisdom, but she was the smartest and the best of the Archons out there, especially considering her age and experience. She has a great sense of morality and is an amazing leader at that. But her weakness is physical strength and raw power. And as for Ei, she is the complete opposite. I might need to go into hiding for saying this from the Raiden stands, but Ei is a pretty bad leader. She is trying her best, but she has so much room for improvement in terms of leadership and understanding the people she rules over and what is best for her nation. She caused a lot of problems for her nation, even accidentally creating a civil war, which costed us the lives of many mortals and godlike beings alike. Yes, she had the best of her nation in mind from her understanding of the world at that time, but she was wrong, and she did grow, but she still has a lot of room for improvement. But the one thing she doesn't lack is strength and power. Oh boy, is she strong and completely terrifying. She is probably and most likely either the strongest Archon or the second strongest at the moment in terms of the sheer destructive power she has. The opposite element thingy also works here as well, since Dendro is trees and forests, lively happy grass and jungle with cute animals like squirrels. It just gives you a feeling of safety and happiness, while Electro or Thunder is scary. It's fast, destructive, and anything but safe. It shows you how puny of a being you are against nature's destructive power, while Dendro shows her kind side to it. So now it's pretty clear what the differences are between these two, and now let us go for the similarities. So let's tackle the first pair once again. Venti and Zhongli. Both of them are the original Archons and two of the oldest godlike beings in Teyvat. In the story, both of them are no longer Archons and they don't rule their lands anymore. Zhongli also faked his death, while Venti faked being captured by Signora, as we can see in his fight against Signora. Whenever Venti uses his power, his hair glows. So he was faking this entire cutscene, and he probably could have soloed Signora if he wanted to. If you want to see more similarities, they both have dragon Vishap pets, who they had a bit of a fight with in the end as well. They both also have an army of sorts involving other godlike beings. When I say army, I mean things like the Yaksha for Zhongli, and the Four Winds of Montat for Venti. And in their Archon quests, we deal with godlike beings, and the Fatui, trying to steal stuff, aka the Gnosis and some other rare materials. For example, the Holy Lyre from Monsat and the Sigil of Permission from Liyue. We also managed to save the nation without getting heavy loss in terms of important character deaths and all. Side note, we also had two extremely horny women in both nations, and I don't think I need to mention who they are. Now let's move on to the second pair. Ei and Nahida might seem very different from each other at first glance, but when you look at their lore and what actually happens in the Archon quest, it becomes quite clear how similar lots of their themes are. The story and world building especially got extremely dark in these two nations, and it kept getting darker and sadder ever since. In the Inazuma storyline, what we see is a nation out of control, at war with their Archon, and a civil war between two parts of the nation with different cultures and beliefs, while the Fatui are on cahoots with the officials of the government. There are still some insiders that we can count on, and with the help of them we fight the god of the nation and expose the government of their lies, thus setting the nation towards the right direction to peace. We also slowly managed to make a change of heart for Ei. and she slowly understands what true eternity means. Now, as I mentioned before, at first this seems completely different from Sumerra's storyline, but let's break this down first. A rogue government, a puppet god that has become the enemy of the people, and behind the scenes the Fatui are pulling all the strings, while the nation's people are on a constant back and forth with each other, aka the desert people against the forest dwellers, or academia. Plus bonus. A harbinger technically also died in Sumeru too, since Scaramouche, or Wanderer, literally erased himself from Irminsul, causing everyone to forget him. And I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like a kind of death to me. So when you actually break this shit down, it's practically the same what happened in Sumeru and Inazuma. Sumeru did have more development and better writing and all, but still the main points are still the same. And the noses also got exchanged in exchange of our Ives, technically, since Ye gave Skara the gnosis to save us, and if Nahida hadn't given it to Dottore, he probably would have taken it by force and could have killed us all there. Or worse, turned us into experiments, and I don't want to know how it's like living that life one bit. And I believe that Fontaine and Natlan will be following the same example. So in Fontaine, we were basically tricked the entire way through until all the way at the end when we got to know the truth. And it was done by the Archon, and the power of the Archon was given to the dragon of the land, and the land is now ruled by thus dragon. Now that is somewhat of a rough recap of what happened. We also had abyss stuff as well, and creatures from other worlds interfering with all this, so we should keep that in mind as well. If I were to go more in detail, I would spend the next 20 hours geeking out about it. 'Cause boy, if you have a brain at least on the level of a chipmunk, you know that the writers were cooking on this, and boy, oh boy, did it taste good. There were also more hints about the All-Sous Celestia, and the Genshin verses with power scaling just went off the roof at the end with Skirk. So let's keep that in mind as well when we theorize about Natlan from this. And as for the Archon itself, it's a bit complicated, since technically Fiorina is the Archon, but Folklore is as well. But to the eyes of Celestia, it was Fiorina, so basically a previous companion of the original Archon, promoted to Archonhood, and faced with a tragic prophecy, splitting herself into two different parts, one divinity and the other human, while both play their parts to save the nation. Also has a dragon companion too, who is the reincarnation of the original Hydro Dragon. Also, if you haven't noticed yet, I am not including world quest stories and lore in this theory, because that would, in all honesty, take way too long to make. But who knows, if you guys want, I might cover it in the future. Now finally we can move on to predicting Natlan's future. Firstly, the Archon and what they will be like. I believe from what we have seen in Fontaine, the Archon is going to be a past companion of either the Pyro Dragon or the original Archon. I also believe we are going to get two Archons instead of one, and it would be like with Fiorina and Folklore, where it's going to be two different sides of the same coin. And what sides could they be, you ask? Dragon and God. One of the Archons is going to have the dragon's side of power, and the other is going to be the god of the element. Who knows? We might also get a Pyro Dragon reincarnation as well, or it could be that the Pyro Dragon merged with the god, thus creating the two with the god side and the dragon side. As for the Archon's personality, I believe they will be quite serious and stoic. They could also have a no fucks given personality as well, and a completely terrifying aura. Their mere presence should demand the utmost respect, and everyone would take them extremely seriously, as they would probably be the strongest beings at the moment. As for the nation's story itself, From what we have broken down so far, I believe that by the end of Natlan, we would resurrect the one and only almighty great Nibelung, the Dragon King, with the help of the Senosi, and maybe also the power of the Abyss as well. Since we heard from our good old tsundere Sumeru Dragon Mommy that Nibelung was indeed familiar with abyssal energy and used it to fight against the usurpers from beyond the skies. I also believe that we are going to deal with some form of curse once again. For what we know about Natlan and the people of Natlan so far, they don't seem to go outside of their nation very often. The last time we saw people of Natlan actually on other nations was with Venti in the manga, and that was hundreds of years ago. We have no clue what happened in between that time period and the start of the game. Actually, now that I think about it, their original Archon might have died during this time period, and that could be related to the curse as well, since Egeria was the reason Fontanians got cursed to begin with. Even though without her Fontanians wouldn't exist. It might be the same way with Natlan's people as well, and it might be related to their Archon dying or them coexisting with dragons all the time. And we all know that dragons are directly linked to the light realm, and that might cause normal humans to be poisoned in a way or intoxicated, because I doubt normal humans would be able to handle light element without facing some sort of a drawback from it. And as for the Gnosis, we already know Fatui are getting it either way, because at this point it's been obvious that Fatui are gonna win ever since Inazuma. I do want a bit more from Natlan, and now let's talk about my expectations for it. Even though I do want more Kynria lore in Natlan, I doubt we are going to get too much. Cause even in Fontaine, both Archon and World quests, we didn't get too many Kynria lore drops. We mainly got lore and hints about the Abyss instead. Even in the new Dain quest it was the same as well. Not that I mind at all, and I am fine with it, but I do want a bit more for our good old destroyed nation. Yes, the Abyss is closely connected to Kynria, but I want to see more about its own history. But Natlan is directly west of Sumeru, which is super close to the door to Kynria, so we might get some more about it there. But then again, the chances are Natlan is most likely going to contain more Celestia and the Old Order lore than Kynria, unless Hoyo gives us a pleasant surprise suddenly, which would make me really happy in all honesty. Other than that, I do hope that we get more info about the Dragon Sovereign stuff too, and what exactly went down during the first war with the Primordial One. That's pretty much all the extra things I want from Natlan, other than the usual Hoyo stuff obviously. You know, like the good old amazing story writing and cutscenes. But at this point, I really trust Hoyo to make a good and immersive experience. So I will leave the pros to do their work. This theory of mine wasn't too long or detailed, cause I basically thought of it while taking a sheet and watching memes in the toilet. But if you still enjoyed it, or learned something new from it, then I am truly honored to be able to do that. Other than that, you'll know the drill. The usual like sub, comment, things like that. And if you like the way I made these, and you want me to cover more topics or theories, then go on and give me some suggestions on the comments or my social media.
I thought he was gonna say something about Himeko. Where is she in all this? Man, fuck this guy, I ain't liking anything.
She is a dragon.